What is going on, everyone, and welcome back. Last week we came back from our break and did some changes and optimization and all that good stuff. So now our engine is running faster than it was before and got some new features in. So this week we are going to work on building the engine itself. And the reason why we're doing that right now is because we need all of our assets to work properly inside of a jar. Because eventually we will have our jar file. The only thing that's inside of our jar file for the engine itself is going to be engine assets. Everything else will be folders outside of the jar. And then with the jar file engine, you will be able to build it, and it will put it all into one jar, and it will remove the editor and turn it into only a playable game jar without any of the editor stuff. So that's the reason why we're working on this right now, is because since we're working on assets, we need to get all of that in place. So like I said last week, it is going to be extremely easy for us to do this. So we're going to need this line in the future. But at this current moment, we are not going to need this line because we're not going to be using file readers. We're going to be using input streams. So for now, all we're going to do is we're going to comment that out. And then whenever we need it, we will add in the additional information. So basically it'll say, up here for the constructor, it'll say string name, and then there'll be another one saying something like game build Boolean or something. So we will know, or game build Boolean, because right now we're just going to keep it all in the resources folder, even the stuff that we're going to be testing out. But eventually we're going to be moving away from that resource. So, actually, before I comment this out, if we try to build this right now, we're going to have some issues. For one, none of the resources are being put into the jar file once we try to build it. And the reason is because we're just using regular folders right now. And I don't know why Eclipse does this, but you have to have a special folder called a resources folder. And even though we named it res, it doesn't recognize it as a resources folder. So whenever you go to build it, it is not including any of these files that is sitting in here. So we need to make it a resources folder. And somebody did mention that they were having issues. I don't know if it's resources files not being passed over, which is what we're getting ready to do, passed over to the jar, or if it was lightweight Java game library not being compiled into the jar. He was using NetBeans, and as you can see, I use Eclipse. I don't use NetBeans, so I'm not 100% sure about why that would be. If it's not being passed in, I've read something about people using jar splice or something. I'm not 100% sure, any of that, because I've never never gone through any of that because I've never had any issues. So if lightweight Java game library is not going into your jar, then you can check out Jar Splice. There's tons of tutorials, and I've read on some forums about it. So you can always check that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Logic, then right click, and then we need a new source folder. And the name of the folder we're going to name SRC. Or wait, what am I doing? Not SRC. It's going to be res. And res is going to be our source folder or resource folder, which is this folder right here. So once we hit finish, it turns that resources folder into an actual readable Eclipse resources folder. And everything is included in it. And I've got something stupid going on. Hold on just a second. I don't know what in the world this is doing. Okay, apparently that was just something stupid Eclipse was doing. I don't know why that was doing that. But as you can tell now, everything is put into these packages. Some people recommend like putting them in actual code packages, and there's all kinds of stupid ways that people do this, and it's ridiculous. So just do it this way. It's super easy. As you can tell, it was just one click. Eclipse was acting stupid, but that's about it. So now all of our resources are being compiled into our jar if we try to compile it. But we're still going to have issues running it. And the reason is because we're using this file reader format. And we cannot do that. So let's go ahead and get to this. It's very simple. All we need is an input stream reader, ISR, equals new input stream reader, capital R. And then we're going to be using GUI skin because that's the current class that we're in. So GUI skin dot class dot get resource as stream, not just a simple get resource, but get resource as stream. We know exactly which folder it's going to be in. So all it's going to be is slash skins slash and then plus name plus dot skin. And I'm going to have to import these. So it already knows that skins is our is a folder inside of resources. So we don't ever have to put res like how we did here, because whenever it's trying to get resources, it's getting resources kind of like in a package format. So this is on like the first level of the sources. So then here we're going to do kind of like what we did above. We're going to go BR equals new buffered reader, and then all we're going to do is we're going to pass in the input stream reader. And then that's it. That is how you read something from a resources folder inside of your jar. So it's almost exactly the same, except for it's just one extra line, and we don't even really have to use that extra line. We can just say we can actually just put all of this inside of here and just make it one line if we wanted to. But later on we're going to be adding like checking for making sure it's possible, like that it's there and all this other stupid stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep it on to 2 lines. So we're going to copy this line because luckily almost everything in here is going to be exactly the same. So for now I'm just going to paste that in here. And let's copy this try catch. Okay, weirdo. And we'll paste it right there. For now, let's comment out this try catch for now, because like before, we will be using it later. Alright, so you're going to need this right there. Actually, it'll be all the way over. There we go. Copy. And right here, I'm gonna paste that in. We're going to change GUI skin to font. And right here, don't be mistaken, I did not have an S on the end of font. So we can change that, but make sure that you don't put an S if you don't have an S on the end of this folder. I screwed up whenever I was preparing everything before, and I put an S in there, and it took me like 30 minutes to figure out why it was not doing it. So something that stupid can definitely screw you over. Why is that not doing it? I thought create font was able to. Font.class. What did I do here? Oh, I passed in a whole. Now, remove the input stream reader. Right? Yes. And then here put dot font. Wait, no, not dot font. Dot TTF. I think that's correct. Yeah, so on the create font, all we have to do is we just need to pass in the get resource as stream. We don't have to pass in the full input stream reader. Alright, so that fixes that. Copy that again. And now into Sprite. Comment that out. Paste it. And sprite.class.get resource as stream, and here we need sprites /name dot I think I named the resource sprite. Sprites, yeah, dot sprite. All right, and then that takes care of that. So as you can tell, it's pretty simple. I forgot to save that off. Same thing with here. And don't worry, it's not completely redundant. Here in just a minute, we're actually going to switch it up once we get to shaders. Here we're going to change that to material and materials and dot material. We don't need that anymore. That. So then that takes care of those. Now, shader. I was going to add it in the last episode and decided not to, but we are going to add it this episode. Probably should have opened this up before starting the recording. So it's going to be, what we're going to do is we're going to jam together both the vertex shader and the fragment shader into one file. Eclipse Workspace, Logic, Resources, Shaders. Alright, so right now we only have these two shaders. So let's go ahead and open up default shader fragment and or vertex and default shader fragment. So here is our vertex shader. So at the very end of the vertex shader, kind of go down, and all caps put end vertex. And then we're going to copy the fragment shader all the way up, even the version number. Going to copy it. We don't need it no more. We'll paste it here. Alright, and there we go. So now whenever we're looking at a shader file, wherever it says end vertex, we know that that ends the vertex shader and the rest is fragment shader. So that means we can work with all of our stuff into or inside of one file. So it makes it easier to work with because we're not working with multiple files, and it makes it easier for us to import. So it's inside of our vertex shader, so we no longer need this fragment shader, so we can just go ahead and delete that. And then here it's going to be dot shader. Yes. And I already have shader files opening up in Notepad. Alright, so that takes care of that. Now what we need to do is add the ability to import these shader files. And all we're going to do is, right underneath here, create a string array. It's going to be called shader, and it's going to equal create shader, and then pass in the file name. All right. And right here, instead of create shader file name plus .vs, we are going to change this to shader 0, because the first element in this array is going to be the vertex shader, and the second element in that array is going to be the fragment shader. So down here, I'm going to say we're going to return sb.toString dot, we're going to split it at end vertex. And then this is going to return a string array. Alright, so that was pretty harmless. So it basically just takes the exact same code, splits it at end vertex, returns a string array that allows us to pass in the string that we get. So that ends the shader file. Now we need to import textures. Now textures are going to be a little bit different. There's a little bit more information that we're going to need in order to do textures. So first we need an input stream. We're going to call it is, because it is not a input stream reader. We're going to do texture.class.get resource as stream, and then pass in textures plus name. Need to import input stream. Now, firstly, we need to create a byte array. Just going to call it bytes, which is going to be a new byte array of some random number. And let's make this bigger. 8,000, that'll do. Now we need to know the current byte that we're on. So int cur byte equals 0. Now we need a byte array output stream byte array output stream. Boss. Why not? And equals new byte array output stream. Import that. Now we need to do a while catch. So while cur byte equals is dot read, and then pass in the bytes. And if it does not if it does not equal -1, then we're going to say boss dot write, pass in bytes 0 cur byte. All right. So this will write in the byte array output stream the bytes in the array. And then we need to say bytes equals boss dot to byte array. And then it's just a matter of getting the byte buffer now. So all we have to do is we need to say byte buffer. We'll call it the exact same thing. I didn't call it buffer, did I? I called it data. Let's remove that. I thought I called that buffer. I normally do. Byte buffer data equals, we're going to have to cast this to a byte buffer because it is not going to be a byte buffer when we get it. It's just going to be a buffer. So we're going to say buffer utils dot create byte buffer, and the capacity is going to be bytes dot length. That's right. I gotta do this stupidness. Oh, I hate messing around with try catches because they make everything just look ugly. Let's separate that just so it looks a little nicer. Channels is not used. What am I doing wrong? I create byte buffer. Oh, because I haven't made the STBI. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I already had that. All right, so now we're going to do buffer dot flip. We need not buffer, data. Come on, ding dong. The whatever. Data dot flip. And then we need, wait, I have to put it in the buffer before flipping it. Data dot put bytes. There. Wouldn't make much sense if I flipped it before I put it in there. And then I need to say byte buffer you know what? If I do that, it's gonna no. Byte buffer buffer. I don't think. Oh no, data is down there. Let's change this. Let's change that to buffer. Because we're gonna need. I know where I was screwing up. This one needs to be data. Because data is our byte buffer from our STBI load. This is our buffer for creating the buffer. Alright, byte buffer data equals, and this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to use STBI load from memory. It's going to take in a buffer, the width, the height, the channels, and 4. So it's going to be almost exactly like how we do up here for the STBI load, except for we're going to be passing in a buffer because we're going to be loading it from memory versus loading it from a file. Why aren't you... Did I type something wrong? Oh, that's a lowercase L, isn't it? No? No? Okay, hold on just a second. I need to figure out why this is doing this. Okay, I think I see where. This needs to be lowercase. And I did not import it here. So it's going to be exactly the same as that. It's going to be load from memory. And let's just comment that out, just so I don't have to deal with looking at that warning message. All right, and that should do it. So now we can go to I'm going to go to export. We're going to make sure that runnable jar file is selected. Hit next. I don't want that. I want it to be logic. Extract required binaries into generated jar. So make sure that is selected as well. Make sure the core is selected. I have so many files that I have to make sure that in the right one. So finish, I already have a logic.jar on the desktop because that's what I was using before. So Let's overwrite it. And as you can see, exporting textures smw tiles.png. So it is exporting the files. Jar creation failed. Why are you failing? You're not supposed to fail. If it fails again, I'll try to run it from exporter with... Okay. So that time it worked. I don't know why it didn't work that first time. I forgot to try and test it from here first. File input stream. Create shader. Shader 97. What is on number 97? Oh, I forgot to do the input stream right here. Okay, so let's go into material, copy this. BR shader.class shaders dot shader. Should have known better whenever I was doing it, but I think I just got hung up on getting the shader file itself correct. Now what? Alright, give me just a moment. I don't know why this is acting like this. Alrighty, I got it. Make sure you refresh your sprites or your shaders package. Since we changed that, I was not paying attention and did not have it imported. Also, this right here, change that from name to file name. Because, yeah, this is file name, not name. So now when we run it, it will run just fine. So now that we know that it's running inside of the editor, just like it was before, now we need to make sure that it runs in an exported runnable jar, which should be perfectly fine since we changed the code, but we will see. Alright, so now it is on my desktop. So click down here or whatever, wherever your search bar is on whatever system you're on. So me, I'm just going to type DOS. Double click on command prompt. Yes, I'm old. I still say DOS. So since I put it on my desktop, wherever you're going to run it from, just make sure you know the path to it. So we're going to put java -jar. I think I have to put / we'll see, desktop / logic.jar. Well, fine then, you butthole. Java jar desktop / logic.jar. Unable to access jar file. Did it not even put it on there or something? No, it's here. I don't know why it's doing that. Well, it works. There is our application fully working with all the resources in, lightweight Java game library in, and running like a dream. Honestly, I don't know what was going on with not being able to run it through DOS. How much time? We don't really have time. I was gonna figure it out, but if you run it that way through your command line, then you'll be able to see any errors that may occur. So if you want to see any errors, if you're not or if you're having issues running it, you can run it through your command line and it will tell you exactly what's going on. If usually when it does not work, which I may have something screwed up as well, not sure, but if you don't have your keys set or whatever for Java, then it may not run from your command line. You'd have to actually click on it. But we'll get into that later, possibly whenever I figure out what I was doing wrong just now. So next week uh, we will batch import everything, because currently right now we are importing everything, like these textures, our skins, everything. We're importing it all statically, meaning we're writing in the code exactly what we want to import. Well, we don't really want to do that. There's a lot of people who make these engines that import everything statically and not dynamically. So they have scripts that have hundreds of things that they're importing, and it just does not make any sense when all they could just make is a dynamic importing system where it just imports it all for you. And that's what we're going to be doing next week, so that we no longer have to statically import anything at all. It will automatically import it for us. Um, and for right now, all of our assets are going to have to be put into our jar file whenever we build it. Later, we're going to have external sources, but we're not going to do that immediately just because it's not really a big problem at this moment. Because we're not going to be working from the jar right now. We're going to be working still from the IDE because we haven't completely broken apart from it yet. So once we get to that point, we will also dynamically add everything outside of the jar as well for your game assets itself, and your engine assets will not show up at all in the editor project panel because it's going to be something built into the engine. So I hope I will see you next week. and we will get all of our asset stuff done. Hopefully have some time to also add the project panels and stuff, but we will see. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.